Welcome back to the PuckLuck.com betting and fantasy team previews for the Buffalo Sabres, the moment we've all been waiting for. We get to talk about last year's Cinderella Sabres, the team that just could not quite squeak into the playoffs with 91 points. They missed by, 1 point. Just had to double check that on my phone. One regulation win away from toppling Florida, who had went on to make the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm not bitter. I'm not thinking about it every day. You are. I am just excited to see what the Sabres team could be going forward. And I know I'm a fan of the team, so we're going to look at the model. We're not going to let my biases get in the way, whether they be positive or negative. What we should say before we get started is that this is going to be a very fun team, a team that is definitely not getting overlooked anymore in fantasy circles, and a team that has a chance to break the longest active drought for a major sports franchise in playoff droughts. It's just been a long, long time coming. And I just could not be more excited to see what my Sabres can do. And that is projected 95 points. 95 points. It's very likely to make the playoffs, as I just mentioned. They had 91 last year. They missed by 1 point. That puts you, around that 92 mark. You could potentially get you in. I think it could be higher next year. So 95 could be right on the line. The one thing you might be noticing is that ceiling is just much closer to the projection than before. I think there's just a massive bottom out potential, and that is really in net. I don't think I need to get too deep into the weeds. I'm very high on Devin Levi. I'm very excited to watch him play. I don't think it takes too many thoughts to get to the point of what if this goalie that's barely played in the NHL could not quite get it done. And I think he will, right? That's a biased opinion. A non-biased opinion, like our model is trying to show us, is that the floor is just very, very low. Unproven goaltending, young team, very, very young team. So it's going to be a great story, a lot of fun to watch. And let's talk about the betting side of it, though. Not going to bet the Stanley Cup. Maybe just $5 because I hate myself, but not giving that as any financial advice. Not a very good bet, but not terrible. It's not the worst bet in the world either. Division, again, not really for me. Plus 900 just really isn't enough in this Atlantic. I just don't really think they have the horses to beat the Bruins, the Maple Leafs. Really, probably still Tampa or Florida. It's going to be kind of a mix between those. And the playoffs in general, I just think if you're going to be betting them at minus 120 to make the playoffs, you're getting better odds on them over 92.5, which is, like I said, I think if they get that 93 mark, that's probably playoffs. And 92 could miss next year. I know I made it last year on the nose, but I think you're just taking that over on regular season points if you're going to take anything here. Not the biggest edge in the world per the model, or really in my own opinion, but I bet it because I'm a degenerate. So I think it's totally fine, but not the biggest, best bet. I think where you really find your best bets on the Sabres are within these player points because of how high these ceilings are. And if you take a guy like Tage Thompson as a catalyst and you go to Underdog, maybe even both Prize Picks or whatever other site you use, and you get season-long totals, well, they also have Alex Tuck. And I would be more than happy to grab Jeff Skinner as well if he mixes in here. But any of those three, all three together or two or however you want to do it, I'm in on. And I think that that's probably the sharpest way to make money. I think that, the rest of this is a bit predicate on, a lot of other things kind of maybe going right. So I'm pretty high on that. I don't know if you're going to find totals for a lot of these other guys down the line, maybe Darlene, and you can mix him in, but I think it's pretty thin to think that he's going to go from what he did last year and replicate or do better. So I would rather just go with that top line myself and then take a look for a guy like Peterka if I can find it anywhere. But these point totals are kind of, in correlation with the projected lineup, which we're going to get to now. Jeff Skinner, Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, all together should be all powerfully correlated. A lot of good DFS value, a lot of good drafting value in Best Puck, and all of them have a lot of merit in your season-long drafts. Dylan Cousins is no longer a secret in any format. He's a kind of one of those guys that you look at in fantasy circles as, man, this is the right aging curve. This is the right kind of player, the right profile, the right opportunity to take even a bigger jump than he did last year. So I'm really high on him again. You never know with these young players. Like, they could take a jump one year and they could fall back the next. So it's not perfect science, but definitely has a very high ceiling. And that just goes with his line mates who started off with J.K. Peterka and Casey Middlestad, which I'm going to touch on a little bit more once I get to our media quote. The bottom six you can interchange a bit, Krebs and Yost, but all of that to say, I'm really excited to see Jordan Greenway a full offseason of being healthy. what he can do for the Buffalo Sabres as far as killing penalties, being a bit of a power forward, hitting hopefully a little bit more with full health. The defense, I love the addition of Clifton mainly here. I don't think Eric Johnson, I'm a bit here nor there on. I like the veteran presence, I guess, but whatever. Clifton, I think, is going to be a really, really, really big addition to that penalty kill. He's going to help alleviate some of Owen Power's, short-sightedness, or just there's things that young defensemen at the age of 19 and 20 just don't do well, and that is make quick decisions with the puck in the defensive zone. And I think that Clifton can help kind of contributes to taking some of that pressure off of Owen Power and letting him hopefully be able to use the skills he has to his advantage, which are aplenty. In net, I've already talked about the question mark, and so does our media quote coming from at Jared Holt. You can follow him, the Charging Buffalo. I do some work with him. One of someone I consider a friend in the space. Absolutely love Jared, and we're one of the sharper guys as well around. So he kind of starts off by saying that we got to kind of be aside from Devin Levi, and I think you just kind of have to when you're projecting the Sabres. Just if you put your biases into Devin Levi and you project him to be more than he's it's like you can't do it. So if he's putting aside Devin Levi as well, because it's really hard to do, it really comes down to the second line. Quinn is likely out till December, so it looks like Middlestad will be up with Cousins and Peterka. And I think Jack Quinn also projected there myself, but he'll be out for a while. So looking at the model, Middlestad jumps out to him. The floor 52 and the ceiling of 85 is pretty large, but I think that could be the difference if this team is a playoff team or not. So Middlestad had a great finish last year. Really, really, I think just we'll go to like assists, and you just look at last year, and Middlestad is not too far down the line to where you're like, whoa, this guy is actually quite a contributor. He just says, basically Middlestad on that line is one player that keep an eye on, and that also kind of goes with Peterka, who the model is pretty low on. Actually, let me just go back here. Peterka, we have a 29 to 48, which is pretty low. I know it's not power play, and he hasn't really done much, but I think the model is also very low on him, so it's really astute of him to point that out. And we'll see what they can do together. Peterka, Cousins, and Middlestad, and just kind of saying like this is what gets this team into the playoffs. Is the second line. So if the goaltending's good, if that second line can catch fire and Jack Quinn can come back and be a major contributor, I mean, the sky's the limit for this Buffalo Sabres team. If it doesn't happen, the goaltending's a mess. They don't get the top line scoring that they, is above a bit of that projection. Might be looking at our golf clubs again at the end of April. So I'm really excited with the Buffalo Sabres team. And the model also thinks it's a projectable bet. I think you can definitely parlay things together in on your underdogs and whatnot. And I think if I had to pick one thing, I just would look for Jeff Skinner for a point total. I think it's going to be much lower than we're projecting myself. And those would be my bets for the Buffalo Sabres. Go Sabres. I can't wait to be right here in KeyBank Center this season with all of my friends watching this team end a playoff drought. I surely hope I'll be with you next time for the Calgary Flames.